Welcome. I'm Madam Gan. Today, this is another lesson for English language, and it is for Form 5 who are going to sit for the SPM examination soon in February. So I call this lesson Poems Made Easy. So let's begin by looking at the poems that you studied in Form 4 and also Form 5. So you have the first one, The Living Photograph by Jackie Kay. And then second, The Charge of the Light Brigade by Lord Alfred Tennyson. And then you have A Poison Tree by William Blake. And the last poem is What Has Happened to Lulu by Charles Cosley. Normally for poems, there are only 3 types of questions that will be asked in the SPM examination. Okay, so let's look at the types. Number 1, normally they will ask you the meaning of lines, phrases, or the words from the poems. And second, they will ask about moral values. And the third, they will ask about themes. So techniques to answer or to study poems. You need to learn the literal meaning of each line in the poems. This means that you need to know each and every line in the poem in normal, simple, everyday English, okay, or ordinary English language. That is the literal meaning. And then number 2, you need to learn the moral values and the lessons. And also moral values are also called lessons. And then number 3, you need to learn or study the themes or messages. So these are the past year's questions for SPM. So poem is in paper 2, and then the code is 1119/2. So let's look at the first one in 2019. The poem was The Living Photograph. 2018, The Charge of the Light Brigade. 2017, A Poison Tree. And 2016, What Has Happened to Lulu. So the first year the question came out for poem was in 2016. Before that in 2015, and the rest questions were based on different poems. So the question is for this year 2020, what will be appearing in the SPM paper? The first poem that we are going to study today is The Living Photograph by Jackie Kay.
The Living Photograph by Jackie Kay. My small grandmother is tall there. Straight back, white broderie anglaise shirt. Pleated skirt, flat shoes, grey bun. A kind, old smile round her eyes. Her big hand holds mine. White hand in black hand. Her sharp blue eyes look her own death in the eye. It was true after all, that look. My tall grandmother became small. Her back round and hunched. Her soup forgot to boil. She went to the awful place grandmothers go. Somewhere unknown, unthinkable. But there she is still. In the photo with me at 3. The crinkled smile is still living, breathing.
Let's look at the vocabulary and the meaning. So the first one is broderie anglaise shirt. So this is French for English embroidery. Is characterized by round or oval pattern cutouts in the fabric, giving a delicate lacy effect. The material is cotton. Bun is the hair is tied together into a round shape at the back of the head. And pleated is a skirt with fullness reduced to fit the waist by means of regular pleats or folds. Awful is dreadful. Unknown is unrecognized. Unthinkable is unconceivable. And crinkle is wrinkle. The most important part in understanding the poem is to know the meaning or literal meanings of all the lines. So let's look at stanza 1. My small grandmother is tall there. It means the persona's grandmother looks tall in the photograph. Straight back, white broderie anglaise shirt. She is standing with good posture because her back is straight, wearing an embroidered lace blouse. So she was younger in the photo. Then pleated skirt, flat shoes, grey bun. So she wears the blouse with a pleated skirt, non-heeled shoes, and her grey or white hair is in a bun. A kind old smile round her eyes, so she is smiling kindly. Her big hand holds mine. Her big hand is holding the persona's hand. White hand in black hand. So this shows the contrast of their skin colors or complexion. Fair will be, or white will be the grandmother, black or dark will be the persona. So this shows that either the persona was adopted or is from a mixed parentage. 7. Her sharp blue eyes look her own death in the eye. So this sentence means the grandmother's sharp blue eyes suggests that she is not afraid of dying. Moving on, stanza 2. Remember that you need to understand each and every line. It was true after all that look. The persona's reference of death came true. My tall mother became small. The grandmother became thinner and more fragile or weak as she grew older. Her back round and hunched. This means her back became hunched. Her backbone or spine curved due to weakened bones as she grew older or aged. Her soup forgot to boil. She became forgetful or senile. Then she went to the awful place grandmothers go. So the awful place is soon she passed away. The persona was scared or fearful of death because of the word awful. And then number 6, line 6, somewhere unknown, unthinkable. It means upon her death, she went to a place that no one knows. Now let's try to understand stanza 3. There are 3 lines here, but there she is still. So this means, however, in the photograph, there is a photograph, her grandmother will always be alive. In the photo with me at 3, the persona was 3 years old in the photograph with her grandmother. The crinkled smile is still living, breathing. This means her grandmother's wrinkled smile is still so alive and real for the persona. Students, remember that for moral values, you have to memorize at least maybe 1 or 2. So remember, when you write, you must use the word we must or we should. Number 1, we must treasure our loved ones when they are alive. Number 2, we must spend as much time as we can with our loved ones while they are still living. Number 3, we must never forget the importance of family relationship. And number 4, we should not forget to love and care for our family, especially our grandparents, who are the pillars of a family. Now for the themes, there are several themes here. The first one is the everlasting quality of a photograph. Number 2 is death. Number 3 is life and death. If they ask about theme or a message, you can write the message or theme itself without the explanation. Or maybe you can elaborate with 1 or 2 sentences. But this depends on the marks. If it's 1 mark, you can just write the answer, the everlasting quality of a photograph. This will give you the 1 mark. But if it is written there 2 marks, so you have to explain. Let's look at number 1, the everlasting quality of a photograph. A photograph immortalizes a person or a moment. What is captured in a photograph will remain alive forever. So maybe you can write these 2 sentences as your answer. So in the poem, the persona's grandmother had already passed away. However, in the photograph, she will always be healthy and alive. A photograph can allow us, or also allows us, to reflect on what happened in the past and relive our memories. Or you can write the second theme, death. Death is a definite outcome for all of us. In the poem, the persona recalls how her grandmother was once strong and healthy, but soon grew older and became senile and fragile. In the end, the grandmother passed away and the persona is only able to relive her memories with her grandmother through a photograph. And then number 3, life and death. The poem is also about life and death from the point of view of the aged and the young. The grandmother knew that she would die soon, but she was unafraid. It also gives us the impression that the grandmother would fight to stay alive for as long as possible. To the young persona, death is a fearful thing. He or she understands that death is a place old people like grandmothers go. Death is unavoidable. Death is described as an awful place, somewhere unknown, unthinkable. That is why the persona is happy that he or she has a photograph of the beloved grandmother where the grandmother lives on. The photograph defeats death. This is the significance of the title of this poem, The Living Photograph. So for your answers, you need not write too long, maybe 1 or 2 sentences. And then we have 2 more themes here, remembering a loved one and also family relationships. So for number 4, in this poem, the persona describes the grandmother as pictured in a photograph taken when he or she was 3 years old. The persona describes how the grandmother looked in details, the clothes she wears, the way she ties her hair up in a bun, and her kind smiling eyes. Then the persona recalls the changes in the grandmother's appearance and behavior as she grew older, how her back became bent or hunched, and how she became forgetful. From the photograph, the persona goes to his or her memory of the grandparent. The grandmother is now dead, but she still looks alive in the photograph. And the last theme, family relationship. The poem focuses on the relationship between a grandchild and his or her grandparent. The photograph of the two reveals the bond between them. Grandmother is holding the child's hand in hers. Even though the grandparent and child seem to be of different ethnicity, as their skin color or complexion is different, they love each other. Even though grandmother changed into a bent over and forgetful old woman, the child still remembers the grandmother as she looks in the photograph. The next poem is The Charge of the Light Brigade by Lord Alfred Tennyson.
The Charge of the Light Brigade by Alfred Lord Tennyson. Half a league, half a league, half a league onward. All in the valley of death. Rode the 600. Forward, the Light Brigade. Charge for the guns, he said. Into the valley of death. Rode the 600. Forward, the Light Brigade. Was there a man dismayed? Not though the soldier knew someone had blundered. Theirs not to make reply. Theirs not to reason why. Theirs but to do and die. Into the valley of death. Rode the 600. Cannon to right of them. Cannon to left of them. Cannon in front of them. Volleyed it with shot and shell. Boldly they rode and well. Into the jaws of death. Into the mouth of hell. Rode the 600.
Dear pupils, you need to know the vocabulary and also the meaning of some of the words. The first one, leak. It is an obsolete unit of distance of about 3 miles. Valley, a long depression in the surface of the land. Brigade, army unit smaller than a division. Charge, make a rush at or sudden attack upon, as in battle. Blunder means to commit a fault or make a serious mistake. Cannon is a large artillery gun that is usually on wheels. Volley is to discharge in or as if in a rapid burst of gunfire. Thunder, make or produce a loud noise. Shell, it is ammunition consisting of a cylindrical metal casing containing an explosive charge and a projectile fired from a large gun. Bold mean fearless and daring. So let's study the lines and the meanings. This is stanza 1, the line half a league, half a league, half a league onward. So a league is an old way to measure distance and equals to about 3 miles. So half a league is roughly a mile and a half. The brigade or battalion was charging forward into the battlefield. Line 3, all in the valley of death. This is a place where many soldiers would die in the battle. Rode the 600. So the exact number of soldiers was 600. They were riding horses. That's why you have the word rode. Forward the light brigade. The captain commanded the soldiers to move forward bravely. In 1854, there was a charge of the light brigade during the Crimean War. Charge the guns, he said. The soldiers were ordered by the captain to attack the guns of the enemies. Into the valley of death rode the 600. The soldiers, 600 of them, moved to the battlefield, prepared to fight and to die fighting. The brigade was ordered into the valley even though they knew that they were going to die. So the brave 600 soldiers were riding on horseback. Now for stanza 2. Forward the light brigade. Again, the captain commanded the soldiers to move forward. Was there a man dismayed? Here dismayed means, was there any soldier who would lose his courage, be terrified or sad? Not though the soldiers knew. Of course, the light brigade was too tough and loyal to feel dismayed. These men did not feel discouraged at all. They were ready to do their job even though the order might be crazy, which is to meet their death. Someone had blundered. The soldiers knew that this charge was not a good idea, that someone, either the captain or the commander, had made a mistake. They asked not to reply, they asked not to reason why, they asked but to do and die. So here, the soldiers were loyal and obedient. They did not talk back to the commander or question the order. And then all to figure out the point of the attack. So they never wondered. All they could do was to ride and fight, and possibly they would die. Into the valley of death rode the 600. This is the repetition of stanza 1 to emphasize courage, bravery, loyalty, commitment, and also duty of the soldiers. And then stanza 3. Cannon to the right of them, cannon to the left of them, cannon in front of them, volleyed and thundered. The soldiers were surrounded by enemy cannon on their left, right, and front. Bad news for the light brigade. They were actually surrounded by enemies. So huge walls of cannons all around them were firing and making a sound like thunder. That's why you have volleyed and thundered. Storm at with shot and shell. Storm means the soldiers in the light brigade were being shot at with bullets and big explosives fired from the cannon. So it's a violent, noisy, destructive force that sounded like a storm. Boldly they rode and well. These soldiers were not scared of the gunfire. They rode bravely, confidently, and with determination. It shows us how heroic these men were in the battlefield. Then, into the jaws of death, into the mouth of hell. They were ready or willing to die of honor. And then hell is suffering and torture, but the soldiers were brave. And then rode the 600. So it means 600 brave or courageous soldiers. They are men of honor. The moral values are, there are 4 here. We must struggle for peace, not war. We must be loyal to our superiors. We must show great discipline as it is important in life. We should always be brave in facing challenges in life. Now for the themes. There are 4 themes. Number 1 is heroism and courage. The Charge of the Light Brigade issues a clear call to celebrate the heroism of soldiers who surrender themselves to a greater cause. Throughout the poem, Tennyson calls attention to their valor, technical skill, and willingness to trust in their leaders. According to the poem by Tennyson, the soldiers knew that they were up against a better armed enemy, the Russians, yet they charged into battle with great courage. And then the second theme is the tragedy of war or warfare. As we all know, war is not the best thing ever created by man. We tend to think that by having war we could solve many problems. The same concept can be applied in this poem. How many loved ones had been sacrificed just for the sake of war? Yes, Tennyson wrote about the 600 soldiers who were involved in the charge, but the counterpart, the Russians too, must have suffered from loss. Then we have two more themes, 3 and 4, loyalty and patriotism, and also duty. So let's look at loyalty and patriotism. As we know that this poem is less about mourning and more about appreciating the loyalty of the British soldiers. They knew well that their leader had mistakenly commanded the brigade to charge towards the enemy because the latter was quite stronger with superior weapons. Yet, rather than thinking rationally, the soldiers marched towards the enemies and attacked them. The whole poem celebrates their loyalty and patriotism. This is why the poem calls them Noble 600 in the end of the poem. Duty. From the poem, even though the soldiers knew that someone had blundered, still they had a strong sense of duty. It is almost like it's their duty to protect the country of their own. They had this thought of the need to protect their families, friends, parents, and they had to. Why? Because they obeyed the order given to them. Now, let's look at the poem by William Blake, A Poison Tree.
A Poison Tree. By William Blake. I was angry with my friend. I told my wrath did end. I was angry with my foe. I told it not, my wrath did grow. And I watered it in fears. Night and morning with my tears. And I sunned it with smiles. And with soft deceitful wiles. And it grew both day and night. Till it bore an apple bright. And my foe beheld it shine. And he knew that it was mine. And into my garden stole. When the night had veiled the pole. In the morning glad I see my foe outstretched beneath the tree.
Now the vocabulary and meaning for this poem. Wrath means extreme or great anger, fury, often marked by a desire for vengeance. Foe is enemy. Watered means to pour or pot water on plants. Sun means provided sunshine. Deceitful, dishonest behavior to make people believe things which are not true or full of misleading lies. Wiles means clever trick a person uses to get what he wants, tricks, or to get someone to do something. Bore means to produce food, to carry, or to give birth to. Beheld means look at, or saw, or perceived, or noticed. Veil means covered with something completely or partially. Now pupils, you need to study the meaning of all the lines. So there are 4 lines here in stanza 1. I was angry with my friend. The meaning is the persona was angry with his friend because they had a misunderstanding. I told my wrath did end. So the persona told his friend about his wrath and he got over his anger. I was angry with my foe. He was also angry with his foe or his enemy. I told it not. My wrath did grow. He didn't tell about it, so he bottled up his wrath or anger and it intensified. So it grew. So it grew like a tree that was growing. Let's now look at stanza 2. There are also 4 lines. I watered it in fears. The persona nourished his anger or tree, and he was suspicious of his foe. Night and morning with my tears. So daily in his resentment of his enemy, he also cried or he felt frustrated. And I sunned it with smiles. He tricked his enemy by smiling at him, and with soft, deceitful wiles. Outwardly, he smiled and he was friendly to trick his enemy so that the enemy would trust the persona. Let's now look at stanza 3. And it grew both day and night. The persona's poisonous tree continuously grew because it was full of anger, hatred, and suspicion, till it bore an apple bright. Later, it bore a shiny, poisonous apple. So this is the fruit. And my foe beheld it shine. So his foe saw and was attracted by it. So beheld it shine means the enemy was attracted to the apple. And he knew that it was mine. So the enemy knew that it belonged to the persona. And this is another stanza, stanza 4. And into my garden stole. It means that his enemy or foe came into the persona's garden and stole his poisonous apple. He fell into the persona's trap. He ate the apple. When the night had veiled the pole, the night was dark. Veil means dark with no stars. In the morning, glad I see. In the morning, the persona was happy to see his enemy, my foe outstretched beneath the tree. So the enemy was lying dead under the tree. There are several moral values for this poem. Number 1, when there is a misunderstanding, we should talk about it to resolve our differences. Number 2, we should not harbor ill feelings against anyone. Number 3, when there is a misunderstanding, we must forgive and forget. Number 4, we should not bottle up ill feelings, which is bad for us and those around us. For this poem, there are two themes. First is managing anger. Second one, importance of communication. Let's look at managing anger. Harboring ill feelings against someone like anger, the basic human emotion, sets the event of this poem in motion. Although it is not necessarily wrong in itself, how we go about dealing with anger is extremely important. If we nurture our anger, it will grow and be harmful to us. In this poem, two ways of handling anger were shown with different outcomes. In the first scenario, the anger disappeared because he mentioned it to his friend. But in the second, the anger grew into something aggressive and negative. Then let's look at the second theme, importance of communication. The poet or the speaker communicates a direct moral value to the readers about the disastrous consequences of his own failure to communicate with another person. If the persona had communicated with his enemy, his anger would have been controlled. However, his refusal to communicate has allowed anger to become something that is very destructive. If we talk, the anger might just reduce and it might just ease our troubles. In turn, it will prevent us from causing hurt onto others. The next poem is What Has Happened to Lulu by Charles Cosley.
What Has Happened to Lulu by Charles Cosley. What has happened to Lulu, mother? What has happened to Lou? There's nothing in her bed but an old rag doll. And by its side a shoe. Why is her window wide, mother? The curtain flapping free. And only a circle on the dusty shelf, where her money box used to be. Why do you turn your head, mother? And why do teardrops fall? And why do you crumple that note on the fire? And say it is nothing at all? I woke to voices late last night. I heard an engine roar. Why do you tell me the things I heard were a dream and nothing more? I heard somebody cry, mother, in anger or in pain. But now I ask you why, mother? You say it was a gust of rain. Why do you wander about as though you don't know what to do? What has happened to Lulu, mother? What has happened to Lou?
The vocabulary and the meaning for the poem What Has Happened to Lulu. So first, white is fully open, flapping, making something move from side to side or up and down, often making a noise. Crumple means crush something into folds. Note is a short informal letter. Roar, make a very loud deep sound. Gust, a sudden strong increase in the amount and speed and wander is to walk slowly around without any sense of purpose or direction. Dear pupils, you need to study the meanings of all the lines. So let's look at stanza 1. What has happened to Lulu mother? The persona, a young boy or it could be a girl, is asking his or her mother where his or her sister Lulu is. What has happened to Lulu? So the persona repeats his or her question, maybe because he or she was curious about the missing sister. And then line 3, there's nothing in her bed but an old rag doll. So the persona says there is nothing on Lulu's bed except for an old rag doll. So this means that Lulu forgot to bring her doll. And then on line 4, and by its side a shoe. So there was also a shoe left there by its side. So this is a sign that Lulu left in a hurry. Now this is stanza 2. So let's look at the lines and the meanings. Why is her window white, mother? So the meaning is the persona is asking his or her mother why Lulu's window is open. The curtain flapping free. The curtain is blown softly by the wind from the open window. And only a circle on the dusty shelf. So the circle is a dust mark on the shelf where her money box used to be, where her money box was, and it was missing or gone now. Then for stanza 3, why do you turn your head, mother? The persona asks his or her mother why she is turning her head away. And why do the teardrops fall? And the mother is crying. And why do you crumple that note on the fire? He or she asks the mother again why she crumples and throws the note into the fire. The mother did not want others to read the note, or she was angry or in denial, and say it is nothing at all. And then she tells the persona that nothing is wrong. Now this is stanza 4. I woke to voices late last night. The persona heard voices. So maybe Lulu was talking to her mother. I heard an engine roar and the sound of an engine. So the roar of the engine implies that his or her sister Lulu was driven away in a car. Why do you tell me the things I heard? The persona wants to know why his or her mother is saying that the voices and the roar of an engine he heard were a dream and nothing more, are just a dream. And then the last stanza, stanza 5, I heard somebody cry, mother. The persona heard someone cry. So it was either Lulu or the mother who was crying, in anger or in pain. So when the person was crying, it was either in anger or pain. So Lulu and her mother could have argued. But now I ask you why, mother? But when the persona asks his or her mother, you say it was a gust of rain. The mother tells the persona that it must have been the wind, not someone was crying. For the last stanza, stanza 6, there are 4 lines. Why do you wander about? So the persona asks why his or her mother is pacing around the room. Wander is to pace. You don't know what to do? The persona wants his or her mother to explain why the mother is confused. So when you are confused, you pace around. Okay, what has happened to Lulu, mother? He or she asks what has happened to his or her older sister, Lulu. What has happened to Lulu? He or she or the persona repeats the question. So here the persona could be very young and does not understand the event that had happened. Dear students, there are 3 moral values for this poem. The first one, we should not run away from home as it doesn't solve our problems. Number 2, we must have a close relationship, or we should have a close relationship with our family members to discuss our problems easily. And the last one, we must love our family members. For the themes, we have 3: grief and love, the end of childhood and the loss of innocence, and parent-child relationship. So again, if they ask a question for theme, you can write the theme itself, like grief and love, the end of childhood and the loss of innocence, or parent-child relationship. If it's written there 2 marks, so you need to maybe elaborate by writing 1 or 2 sentences. Let's look at number 1, grief and love. The mother is grieving over her lost child. The fact that the child has run away does not make the grief less significant. The confusion of the narrator about his or her parents' reaction also tells us something about the nature of grief. The mother clearly loves Lulu. The narrator loves the sister, as she called her by pet name Lu. The narrator is also worried about the sudden disappearance of the elder sister. The second theme is the end of childhood and the loss of innocence. Lulu is probably a younger or a young teenager. She ran away based on the note that her mother crumpled. She took her savings, which is the money box, to start a new life with a man who drove her off in a car, because we have the word an engine roar. So she left her childhood behind. And then number 3, parent-child relationship. The mother's and also Lulu's relationship could have been a tense and strained one. Lulu is a rebellious teenager, so she dislikes her mother's restriction on her freedom and emerging interests. Maybe she was interested in the opposite sex, so she keeps secret from her mother. The mother's and the narrator's relationship is less dramatic. This is about the persona. The narrator or the persona is obedient and respectful to the mother. The narrator loves the mother very much and observes her pain and distress. For this section, there are some sample questions. The first one, what has happened to Lulu? Dear pupils, this is the actual SPM question for the year 2016. Let's look at A. And why do you crumple that note on the fire? Stanza 3. What do you think the note is about? So the answer is, Lulu informed the mother that she had run away. Number 2. Why do you think Lulu's mother crumpled the note on the fire? Answer can be, she did not want others to read the note. Number B. The poem mentions waking up to voices. Whose voices do you think are heard? Suggest one. So you can write Lulu, or you can write the persona's mother. And the third question, in your opinion, why didn't Lulu take the rag doll with her when she left? Explain. You can say that she was rushing, or she was in a rush to run away to the window in her bedroom. So she forgot to take the rag doll. Let's look at another set of questions from Negeri Sembilan. A is stanza 1. Which phrase reflects that Lulu has brought along all her belongings? So answer is, there's nothing in her bed. Okay, number 2, why was mother crying? So answer is, Lulu had run away. In stanza 4, what woke the persona up? So answer is, voices and engine roar. D, from stanza 6, line 3, what has happened to Lulu mother? This line tells us that the persona is curious, referring to the whole poem. Name another characteristic the persona has. Give a reason for your answer. So characteristic will be curious or inquisitive. Reason, because the persona kept asking his or her mother about Lulu. This is a set questions from Selangor. So A, in stanza 2, why do you think the curtain was flapping? So the answer can be, the window was opened. 2, why do you think there was a circle on the dusty shelf? So Lulu took the piggy bank which was on the dusty shelf. B. In stanza 3, which line tells the mother was sad and in pain? The line would be, and why do the teardrops fall? C. What advice would you give to the persona? Give your reason to support your answer. So advice would be not to worry about Lulu who was missing. This is the advice you will give to persona. And then the reason, the persona is too young to understand about Lulu who ran away. Let's try to look at the questions for a poison tree. So the first question, this is a set from the actual SPM from the year 2017. So A, the persona used tricks. Which line in the poem refers to these tricks? So answer will be, and with soft, deceitful wiles. B, why does the persona use the phrase day and night in stanza 3? Answer is, his anger continues to grow every moment. So in stanza 4, why do you think the foal was outstretched beneath the tree? Answer will be, he died after eating the poisonous apple. D, what advice would you give to the persona and why? Advice would be, he needs to talk to the enemy. Reason, because he can try to solve the problem by talking to the enemy. There could be a misunderstanding between them. This is the set from Selangor. The questions. In stanza 1, who does the persona forgive? So answer will be his friend. In stanza 2, which line shows the persona is insincere? Answer is, and with soft deceitful vows. C, in stanza 3, line 9, and it grew both day and night. What does it refer to? Answer will be wrath, anger, or resentment. In your own words, what emotion is expressed by the persona? Give reason to support your answer. So the emotion is anger. Reason, the persona was angry with the enemy or with an enemy and tried to trick the person to trust him. Let's move on to the next poem, The Living Photograph. So the question, this is the actual SPM question for the year 2019. So the first one, A, the word there is mentioned twice in this poem. What do you think there refers to? So answer will be photograph. B, in the poem, why did the grandmother become small in size? Answer will be she aged or she grew older. C, the persona views death with great fear. Give one line that shows this. So the line would be, she went to the awful place grandmothers go. And D, imagine the persona is your friend. What would you do to help your friend in this situation? And why would you do this? So what would you do to help? Answer will be, I would console her and spend more time with her. Reason, she will be able to express her feelings of losing her grandmother and will not feel so lonely. This is the set from MRSM. A, in stanza 1, which phrase refers to the grandmother's hair? So this is a phrase. So answer will be grey bun. B, in stanza 2, line 3, her back round and hunched. Tell us that the grandmother had physically changed. What do you think caused the change? So answer will be she aged, she became older, or she grew old. C, she went to the awful place grandmothers go. What do you think happened to the grandmother? So answer will be she died or she passed away. D, somewhere unknown, unthinkable. This line tells us that the persona was innocent. Referring to the whole poem, name another characteristic of the that the persona had. Give a reason for your answer. So it will be, she's grateful because she treasures the time she had spent with her grandmother when she was alive. Next is a set from Perak. So A, in stanza 1, which phrase refers to the grandmother's hair? Again, the same question, so the answer is grey bun. B, in stanza 2, why do you think the grandmother forgot to boil the soup? Answer will be, she became senile or forgetful. C. Give one physical change that the poet could see as the grandmother grew older. So answer will be her grandmother had a hunchback. D. Apart from keeping photos, suggest another way to make sure memories stay alive. Give a reason for your answer. So the way will be keep the presents given by the person we love. Answer will be reason we can treasure and recall moments with the person. Dear pupils, in the following slides, there are many other sets of questions. So you can try to answer these questions and discuss them with your teachers. You can try to answer these questions. The first one is this set from Terengganu. And also try this set from Pahang. And this is from Johor. This is another one from Johor. And then another one from Johor. This is from Sabah. This is from Perlis. And this is the set from Selangor. And the last set of questions is from Malacca. So try to answer them and then discuss with your teachers. Now, moving on, let's do the questions from the Charge of the Light Brigade. This is a question for SPM 2018. In stanza 1, which phrase refers to the distance that the soldiers took? Answer will be half a league. B. Forward the light brigade. Charge for the guns, he said. Stanza 1, line 5 and 6. Who do you think he was? Answer will be the captain of the brigade or the commander of the brigade. In stanza 2, line 4, someone had blundered tells us that someone made a mistake. What mistake do you think the person made? So answer will be to charge into the valley, or he gave the order to charge into the valley which was surrounded by enemies. D. Boldly they rode and well. Stanza 3, line 6. This line tells us that the soldiers showed bravery. Referring to the whole poem, name another characteristic that the soldiers had. Why is the characteristic important? So characteristic is loyal. Reason, we have to be loyal to our superiors, as this shows we respect their decisions or orders. This is another set of questions. A. How many soldiers were involved in the battle? Answer will be 600. Why is it called the Valley of Death? Answer, the soldiers died there. From stanza 2, who do you think has made the mistake? Answer will be the commander or the captain of the brigade. One of the consequences of war is loss of lives. State two others. So you can mention loss of properties, like houses, and then you can mention loss of income. Dear pupils, try to answer these questions. There are many more on these slides. Here we have more questions on the Charge of the Light Brigade. So there are 7 questions here. And then we have more questions, question 8 to question 14. So try to find the answers and then you can discuss with your teachers. Here you have some answers given. Dear pupils, I've already made 4 videos on the 4 poems. In these videos, there are more detailed discussion, for example, for setting, for tone and other items for the poem. So if you want to watch these videos, you can go to the playlist. So this is the link, or you can scan the QR code. Dear pupils, thank you for watching this video. Just now, we managed to revise all the 4 poems. So, best of luck for your SPM examination. And then do remember to subscribe to my channel. It is called Educator Omni Tube. I'm Madam Gan. Signing off. Bye bye.